go. Let it go. We're going through a few people.
So this morning's a big day where we hole through, where we actually go from a one-way hole to a two-way actual tunnel. So this is a big day. So getting ready, they're on the other side of this material here and drilling away and getting to load that up. And shortly here they'll go through a blast and we'll have the tunnel here. This area over here is we're up at the upstream transition structure. It's going to be built here for connecting to Flume.
This project is not like the conventional ones we do anymore. Most of them are done with a TBM. So this drill and blast is kind of an ancient art that we came in here. We thought we'd have a little bit harder ground than we had, so we got to put different kinds of ground support in. Here we've got some steel sets in the middle of the tunnel there where we hit some glacier till, and we've got to do a lot of shotcrete, some rock bolts, some resin rock bolts. We don't do a lot of resin rock bolts anymore. And made a nice tunnel here.
Why a tunnel? That's a good question. Where the Flume exists today along the Truckee River, it's on the face of a cliff. There's no access to this section of Flume. Back in 2003, we had a 350-foot section of this Flume fell into the river from a rock slide. To rebuild that section of Flume and do the cleanup from the failure, all that had to be done by helicopter. There is no access to this section. It's about an 900 foot section of Flume with no road to it.
And so all of these footings are subject to being impacted by that to bring down the Flume. So that's one of the risks. associated with this that was evaluated with when we were looking at the tunnel. So you have this ongoing risk of high water events that come up, which that entire risk is eliminated with the tunnel.
Yeah, it takes, oh yeah.
We want to restore this whole corridor back to its natural state. And so one of the things that we'll do is we'll include in the scope of work to clean all this out, any debris. It's like, you know, we want to bring it back to so it looks like we were never here. And so but you see a lot of this where the rock's been notched out, or footings, you know, notched into the rock up on that top one there.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is the better section here. This is stuff that get around the corner here. We have 20-foot high posts that are
On the same thing.
on the same type of structure.
Flume. 350 feet of flume cost $1.1 million to clean up and rebuild. So you look at the economics of what's out there, what a tunnel gives us. Brent and I did some cost analysis on this, and if we would go out there and rebuild the flume in kind, we could probably do it cheaper than building a tunnel. But that doesn't give us anything. The exposure that we have to high river events, to rock slides, to a flume failure, we haven't mitigated that whatsoever. So then we look a little bit more long term. That flume is good for roughly 40 years before it has to be rebuilt again in its entirety. And in between that 40 years, at 20 years, you're going to do a rehab of the existing superstructure. So you have that cost in there. So over a 40-year lifespan, you've got to rebuild that flume section twice. Now we're at the same cost as the tunnel. Plus you still had the exposure to rock falls coming off the mountain. And of course, if you're going to have a rock fall, it's going to happen in the middle of summer at the peak generation period, and we're going to have the plant offline. With that said, with the steel substructure, you may not have to rebuild it, but the superstructure would still have to be rebuilt every 20 years. You start getting into that, and it's much more expensive than a tunnel long term.
Big day.
Yeah, it is. Been looking all weekend. I'm just like, oh, can't wait. This is awesome.
Behind somebody, you're good.
Finally through the mountain.
The mountain's still standing.
It's actually, I still love it.
Oh, that might be it. See the water? The flume?
Oh, is that what was that thing with the ice?
Shooting up waves of water through the flume.
These guys are
try to stay out of Robert's way as much as we can, and then once he's there, then we'll just start. Once I get low enough, then we'll start, grabbing it, and they can come and push it until we get up there, figure out what we got to do for
transition. We're already through.
Oh, okay.
I've been keeping until then.
I got you.
Won't recognize me at the home through. The old lady done made me cut the hair. It was sticking all the way out the hard hat.
Well, after the hole through, they'll muck all that material out, haul it up to the stockpile, and then just start going through and mapping the tunnel for where the areas of the walls and ceiling need to be have different or have just additional shotcrete applied, and then they're going to start hauling in subbase and bringing that up for getting it ready for to put the invert in. The concrete invert is going to be poured in there. So now.
First of all, we just had an excellent contractor on site. We could have done better. Not only were they the lowest bidder, but they brought in a vast amount of experience. I talked to all the miners. All of them had 10, 15 years of experience in various operations. So I got a good feel for the quality of the labor that we had up there. Excellent mining personnel. The management personnel were excellent. Harlan, who was a blasting specialist, you couldn't find a guy with more experience than that. Yes.
You know what? We couldn't be happier. I've worked with many contractors in my career, and this is probably one of the most, not so much a sophisticated project, but challenging project, I guess would be. Drill Tech responded to the changing conditions expeditiously. They had the equipment they needed on site. The steel sets that were required were delivered on site. Brad himself has been great to work with. He's a good communicator. We always know what's going on. We haven't been surprised. You know, as a contractor doing this job, we're very happy with them.
Working with Drill Tech has been fantastic. I wish all of our contractors would pay as much attention to as these guys do. These guys have been upfront, a great work ethic, a great amount of integrity, hard-working group of guys.
Yeah.
We've been doing 48 years you've been doing this?
Yeah, since August of '66. First, that was a 7-mile railroad tunnel up there in Montana. And they put that Libby Dam in. They had to build bridges and divert roads, and that the only way they could get that Montana Railroad satisfied, they had to put that tunnel through the mountain because there was too much elevation for them.
You were on that Libby Dam project, Herman?
Well, that was the tunnel.
Yeah.
The tunnel was part of that. And then I worked for another outfit outside laying culverts for a while until I went back to Boston.
I heard they're going to tear that out.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's 100 years old now.
Nah, I got paperwork.
Who are these
to do.
guys you work with
Yeah,
here?
yeah, these-